Welcome back. The mainland piloted their new central bank digital currency last year. Eddie Yu tells us how this will affect cross-border payments with Hong Kong. Let's move on to the new digital currency that China launched last year. How will this affect cross-border payments with Hong Kong?
It is a major development on the mainland. What they call the eCNY is actually mainly introduced for domestic payment use. But as you can imagine, the flow of people, the flow of business between mainly, especially the GBA, with Hong Kong is so large that if they introduce a eCNY in future, we have to be prepared that, for example, mainland tourists or mainland businessmen will come to Hong Kong and use the eCNY. We have already started a pilot test with the People's Bank of China, which focus on if the mainland person has got a eCNY wallet, can it be used in Hong Kong with Hong Kong merchants and Hong Kong banks? We've completed that phase 1 already, and it proves that technically it's very doable and the pilot is very smooth. We are now talking about phase 2, and I expect that this phase 2 will be completed this year. One is, of course, we will expand the number of merchants that get into the test for the use of eCNY in Hong Kong, mainly to cater for mainland tourists or mainland businessmen. But the other way around, we've got Hong Kong people who actually either live or they travel in the Greater Bay Area or other cities in China, that they might need a eCNY wallet. How do they get it? Can they apply for the wallet through the Hong Kong banks? And even more, how can they top up the amounts in the eCNY? Can they use the faster payment system in Hong Kong and do it just through your mobile phone, a few clicks, and then you will top up your eCNY wallet, and then you can use it in restaurants and other shops in China. That's actually what we are trying to do in the phase 2 of the pilot test.
Right, that's interesting. Is it possible for Hong Kong to have its own digital currency, which is just essentially the Hong Kong dollar digitized, right?
We have been looking at that for a few years already. In fact, the central bank digital currency, what we call the CBDC, is something that we tried to look at a few years ago. We are actually piloting the use of CBDC, including a digital Hong Kong dollar, for the wholesale use, including cross-border payment. For example, currently, if you do remittance with Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, it's actually quite troublesome. It's costly, it takes a long time, you don't know when it will get to the other side. A pilot that we are doing together with a few central banks, Thailand, China, and also UAE, plus the Bank for International Settlement, is a multi-CBDC project, which means each central bank will issue their own CBDC. In future, if you do the remittances, you don't have to get it through the correspondent bank. You can just use the CBDC and do the conversion. It will be faster, cheaper, and it will be very conducive to trade finance as well. So if that pilot proves to be successful, the next step is, of course, to think about how to commercialize it, how to let the banks and the people of different economies to use it. And that will actually improve tremendously the current cross-border service that you are now having, especially in remittances.
Do you see a future where the Hong Kong dollar might be linked or pegged to the Renminbi? And of course, they now have their own digital currency. Where do you see that going?
If you think about the technical arrangement, it's actually not quite possible to link a currency with the RMB, because if you use a currency board arrangement, you need the anchor currency to be open completely in the capital accounts, to have deep bond market that you can get in and get out very easily. And for that, I think the RMB and the mainland capital control is still posing technical difficulties for any change. But basically, on the design conceptual level, we don't think any change is needed.
So Hong Kong has really been trying to be a center for fintechs, for startups. And there's always been competition with Singapore, right? So given the backdrop of changes in the law, data security here. How do you ensure that Hong Kong is still a competitive place for fintechs to be?
We are already at the forefront of the global fintech scene. You know that we've introduced 7 smart banking measures a few years ago. In fact, if you look at the change of behavior of people in the last year during COVID, we now got a registration of 7.5 million users on the FPS, which represents a 70% increase in registrations. And that's very significant. In the next few years, we will focus on 3 areas. The first is about even wider use of technology in banking operations, whether you're talking about data analytics for credit scoring, or the use of technology for regulatory compliance. For example, if more people, when they use government services, they can just pay by FPS, that will be a lot more easier. The second part is about data, because if you want financial innovations, you need to have data, which serve as the ingredient for them to cook their product. We are now introducing a commercial data interchange, which aims to create a common platform so that especially the SME can, if with their approval, the banks can access this common platform to get the so-called digital footprint so that they can base their credit scoring on data instead of just on collateral. That will benefit many people. We have been working very closely with the Privacy Commission to make sure that all privacy laws are observed, and any additional suggestions, comments from the Privacy Commissioner can be built in when we build the interchange, so that the privacy concern that you mentioned can be addressed.
The other thing we've fallen behind with compared to the mainland, I think, is green bonds, green investments, that type of thing. So where is Hong Kong when it comes to this?
With the government bond program, which is actually quite a big one compared with other Asian sovereigns, we've actually attracted the ecosystem here. Because they need to serve the government in issuing their bonds. You've got the reviewers setting up their offices here. You've got the DCM desk of the investment banks bringing in the green experts to advise the government. You've got the distribution network that can access the green investors. Think about it. If in future, when the mainland says that, hey, in order to achieve the 2060 carbon neutrality, the corporates in the Greater Bay Area might need to access global capital, which is the best place that they can try out in that access? It's got to be Hong Kong, because we use international rules.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Melissa.